And now I get to talk to Carmen Gardner, who has had such an amazing history, about what has been happening with her and her story. I know we follow each other on Facebook, and I've been watching your story, and you had to make some hard decisions. This last year has been a very, very challenging year for you.
Oh,
life-changing year for
exactly,
you. Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, you lost your son?
Yes, in December.
And
it was shocking.
Absolutely.
It was a sudden thing, so.
Yeah. And everyone's heart has been going out to you. That kind of thing takes a long, long time to recover from. And then you had planned this. You're a fantastic artist.
Thank you.
You had planned an amazing trip to go to Italy and Spain, taking how many people with you?
Well, it was basically a workshop that I had committed to about a year ago, and that was going to take place, or did, in Rada in Chianti, Italy, which is part of Tuscany, area in Tuscany, Italy.
Beautiful.
And so I had committed to that, and so there were several students who had purchased their tickets, their airlines, and pre and post workshop plans, and so I had committed to that probably, I'd say, probably about a year prior, so maybe March of 2018.
And then your husband, Craig, you've been married how long now?
Well, we've been together 30 years.
Wow. He had
I'm told.
Tell us what happened there.
Well, in, let's see, what month are we in here?
We are in July, mid-July.
Been one heck of a
Yes.
6 months. So around April, I think it was, he was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, out of the blue.
Wow.
And this person, my husband, has never been sick in the 30 years that we've been together. He never, ever called in sick one time.
Really?
He's a professor at the college, and never once in all that time that we've been together since 1989 has he ever missed a class or called in sick. And then out of the blue, he's diagnosed with a devastating illness.
And he knew because he just wasn't feeling well?
There's no, it's so, I think they call it the silent, he had a flu a couple of times, nothing major. And then the second time he got it, he wasn't feeling 100% after. And then his voice didn't, still felt weird. And so he went and got that checked, and they said, it's probably a bacterial infection, take some antibiotics. And he tried that, and it didn't clear up. And so after a major argument of me telling him, you are going to the doctor, and I am making this appointment right here on the computer for you, no questions, he did go again, and they basically started, they put him in touch with an ENT because of the hoarseness in his voice, and the ear, nose, throat doctor eventually did a CT, and he called I think it was like 6 o'clock on a Friday night, which is the worst time a doctor can ever call you because you can't call him back the next day, right? And said, I wish we had better news, but we think we see something going on. Basically, he used the C word, and then they did a biopsy of a gland, and there were the results, sent him to Honolulu for a bronchoscopy, and this was the end of May, and the bronchoscopy showed what they call non-small cell lung cancer.
Which is devastating news.
Devastating
News. And again, not knowing or expecting anything like this, and no issues before.
No, just out of the blue. And as you said earlier, it is life-changing.
Yeah.
These things that happen in the blink of an eye, and everything changes. Your whole perception of your future, your what are you going to do? How do you deal with this? What are the alternatives? What are the treatment options? I will say that we are really blessed here on Maui. Now, I would have not said this probably 5 or 6, 7 years ago, but and people say don't want to get sick on Maui. You don't want to, go to Maui Memorial or whatever. But after my son was found deceased, I had what they call a Takotsubo heart attack.
I remember reading about that.
And the last thing I expected was this. Went to Kaiser just because I wasn't feeling, this was the next day. I was feeling a little weird and kind of like something heavy on my chest. And I figured they'd give me some Xanax and send me on my way, tell me I was having anxiety or whatever. But the moral of the story is they were
that's kind of
wonderful.
what happened to Carrie Fisher. And Debbie Reynolds.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I had heard of it, but I never thought in a million years that kind of thing would happen to me, and I guess I should explain for the listeners what I'm talking about. Takotsubo is a term that Japanese physicians gave to this type of heart attack that is not caused by a blockage, but rather by a devastating or even a euphoric event. You win the lottery, some people can't handle that great of a shock. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they also call it broken heart.
Yes, I've heard that.
Heart attack. Yeah. And the weird thing is, Cindy, is it happens to women, postmenopausal women, 90-something% of the time.
Oh, I didn't know
it's
that
women.
either.
And only in the past, decade or so has it even been diagnosed. And what happens is the left ventricle of the heart actually changes shape.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and your heart sustains damage as it would in any heart attack, and then gives off troponin. And so they measure your troponin level in your blood, and that's how they can tell whether you're having a heart attack or whatever. But the point being that Maui Memorial was absolutely amazing.
Wow.
I felt as though I were in a one of these TV series. So many doctors, nurses, wonderful, wonderful care. Kaiser, I have Kaiser. They were exceptional. Sent me to Honolulu via air ambulance, jet. Did an angio and found out that I didn't have a blockage, and so they could cement the diagnosis. And they have been wonderful. The same with the reason I brought that up was because with Craig, we found that, and other friends who have gone through similar diagnoses, that the oncology department here at Kaiser follows the same protocol as MD Anderson Cancer Centers in Houston, Texas.
I didn't know that.
And so we are receiving top-notch care. Craig is on a combination chemo immunotherapy where they this bronchoscopy that they did in May was to identify what they call biomarkers going down to the molecular level of the cancer cells to find out exactly what those biomarkers are, and then they can treat with immunotherapy to boost your T cells to specifically be programmed, in other words, to go after those biomarkers.
So they're very directly targeted.
Yeah, so not just the chemo from 60 years ago that we've known for up until maybe 5-7 years ago. Now this immunotherapy is helping a lot of people and giving hope where there wasn't any.
Willie Kay's doing that.
Is he on immuno as well? And how's he doing?
He just played in Lake Tahoe.
Wow.
He's doing a tour.
Excellent.
He's lost a lot of weight. He looks very different. You wouldn't recognize him. He's grown a beard. But, you can't stop Willie Kay.
Good for Willie.
It's just one of those things. So here you are in this whole situation and have gone through probably the hardest year of your life. I mean, I don't think what could be more difficult. And you had to make the decision. You said, I'm not going to go on this trip.
I did.
You said, there's no way I can go at this point, right?
Right.
You had planned to meet people. Other people had made plans. And the trip was exactly, when were you supposed to leave?
June 2nd.
June 2nd, right in the midst of all this.
Right.
So how do you decide on a situation like that? What made you go?
Well, Craig wasn't going to hear of me canceling. And so he basically said, one day we were talking about it, and I said, I really think I should probably cancel this trip. And I was vacillating. One minute I thought I'd go, the next, and I had, for the first time, trip insurance.
Oh, you did get it, huh?
And this was prior to
knowing anything.
Knowing anything. And someone said, you must have trip insurance.
Yeah.
And you probably promote that
Absolutely
here on
do. Absolutely.
the show,
Especially
right?
in this day and age, yeah.
And I had never had it ever. And someone said, you should do it. And so I thought, oh, okay, I'll invest the $100 or whatever it was and do the trip insurance. And so as it turned out, I could have used it. But then Craig said something, what are you going to do here? You're going to be here. There's nothing you can do. We have to wait for the results of the genetic testing. And then you're just going to stress me out more, which is probably true, by being here wishing you had gone or thinking what would have happened had you gone. And since there's nothing you could do and it's 3 weeks, you should go. And then other folks were saying, I've fought this battle and you are going to come back and it's going to be intense and you should go and do your thing and come back and be ready for the fight. And so those things put together, I'm glad I went. The other thing I did that I never normally do is, and I hadn't done this because I had Skype and WhatsApp, on my phone. But in Frankfurt, as I arrived in Frankfurt, AT&T texted me and said, for $10 a day, you can have roaming. So I said, okay, I'll take that just in case, right?
Yeah, me too.
So,
Oh, I do. Because without fail, if you don't do it, when you go Google Map or something happens, and I always go over. I absolutely do always get,
Right.
And I still go over.
And then you feel okay that somebody can call you, and I was thinking, gosh, if anything happens, the folks who were helping. Oh, that's another thing. Shout out to to Paulina Aroca and her husband, Charlie, that helped us, to Annette, another gal who just stepped up and said, hey, whatever we can do, we're here for you.
To take care of things here.
Yeah, and if Craig needs, and they did, and came and watched the dogs while he went over for gamma knife radiation thing that he had to have done and whatever. And so, it takes a village.
It does. How did you land up in Frankfurt? I thought you were going to Italy and Spain.
Well, okay. This time, the way I got there was I left Maui and
on what airline?
On Hawaiian Air. But the weird thing was they routed me through Kona, which I've never had done.
That's strange, yeah.
I know, right? So Kona to Los Angeles, and I overnighted in L.A., and then booked a 3:15 flight intentionally through United, and it was Lufthansa, one of their partners. And so from Lufthansa to Frankfurt to Florence, and just went straight through that way.
And there were some delays.
On the way back, there sure was.
Oh, okay. Well, this is a little bit of warning. We like sharing these stories because we all learn from each other. You never can have close connections anymore, folks. If we could tell you one thing without fail, what they tell you can do when you book flights, and they will say you can do 45 minutes. You cannot.
It's a legal connection.
You cannot.
How many times have you heard that?
You cannot do
right?
45 minutes, and if you're coming in from somewhere else, especially international flight, you need more time than you think you need.
Yeah, you do.
There's never been more people traveling. There's so many people traveling. There's so many delays. There's so many issues. And you do not want to be stressed where you're going, oh, my God, I've got to catch my flight in 10 minutes or 15 minutes. You've seen people in airplanes where they're going, how am I going to make my connection? We've been delayed a half an hour or 4. And that's not even unusual anymore. Being delayed a half an hour, 40 minutes is not unusual. So if you have a 45-minute connection, good luck is all I can say, because things happen. So you got delayed 3 hours, huh?
Well, that was just part of the story on the way back. So okay, I'm in Madrid, and I'm being told by anyone I asked, "Oh, you got to be at the airport 2.5 hours early." And I do not like being at an airport and sitting there, and then going on a plane for a million trillion hours, right? But I'm learning that is the wise thing.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I had booked a flight in the morning. I think it was like 8:30, and so I am not a morning person. And I'm looking at, I'm counting
Funny,
backwards.
'cause didn't you used to do the morning
I
show?
did. I am not a morning person anymore. I used to have to turn the station on back when they went off the air here. And you didn't want to be late to work and have a million people, island late to work. But anyway, so 8:30 was the flight. So I'm counting backwards, and I'm like, wait a minute, that means I have to be at the airport at 6 a.m. That means I have to get up at 4 a.m. in order to do my hair and makeup right, and be half awake. And so I did, and then once I got there, I saw why. The security, and it might have been just the security I got, but the guy was just, it was like Gestapo time, and so I ended up saying, okay, never mind, I will check this bag, going back up, standing back in line, checking.
Was that Lufthansa?
It was actually TSA.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. I was flying.
So in TSA, they wanted you to check it.
Yeah,
okay.
TSA. I only had in my carry-on the same stuff I had in my bag when I left here.
Yeah, but they're different there.
But they're different.
I found that out too.
You found that out.
I had a bag and they did not want to let it through. I'm going, wait a second. I came here. If it's fine, no, you got to. And it was like, they almost got to the point where they're going to kick me off the flight.
Exactly.
I'm going, wait a second. I know it fits. This is illegal, and it fit on the way over. And John's trying to say, oh, you better be quiet. And I said, but I know it fits. And they said, finally, okay, take it,
yes.
right?
Well, the guy was waving a quart-size Ziploc in my face.
Oh, great.
And he was saying in Spanish, solamente uno, only one.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I understand that in Spanish. I'm speaking to him in Spanish. I understand that. This is my cosmetics.
Yeah.
This is my medication.
Right.
And he didn't care. He didn't want to hear about it.
And he was going to even make you check because of that.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Because I had like 3 or 4 Ziplocs.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. with separated.
Here, it's no problem.
No.
Right.
Here, there's no problem.
No issue, yeah.
And 4 ounces we're allowed.
Yeah.
There, it's like 2.
Yeah,
or 2 and a half.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Something, I don't know. But I was like you. I was arguing, and I was, it was early. I hadn't had my coffee.
Yeah.
It was like, dude.
Yeah.
Really? I always travel with this in my carry-on. He didn't care. So I went, okay, never mind. I'll check it. Went back up, checked it, and it was cool. But then I got to Frankfurt, and I knew there was a 3-hour layover.
Yeah.
I wasn't 2 hours and 50 minutes. I wasn't too thrilled about that, but whatever. So I get there, and I walk after 4 security checks, and I had SSSS on my ticket, which meant extra security. Now, why they want to have extra security for somebody my age, female?
Did the guys and the guys where you left put that on? Sometimes if you get...
I don't know.
No, they can sometimes do that. I hate to say that.
But, oh, my God, it was there was one guy had one of those hats on that said Polizia on, and he was like in his 20s, and he was just, so like 4 different security checks. I get to my gate,
gosh.
Z62, right?
Uh-huh.
I get there, and I'm looking, and the flight isn't up there. There's a flight to Delhi that's on the board.
Uh-huh.
And so I go and I ask the staff, and there was a woman who spoke English, so she came over to me, and she said, your flight's delayed 3 hours. I said, wait a minute, what time? This was at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
She says 5 p.m.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, okay, why would that be? Well, because we're having a meeting of the airline food service people to talk about outsourcing the food service on Lufthansa.
Number one, they never tell you the reason. I'm kind of even shocked they would give you such a
know,
stupid
right?
reason. They never will ever tell you the reason it's late, but yeah.
Right? So I'm like, a meeting? Well, okay, so we won't eat, And she said, well, no, we don't have anyone to staff the airline. And I said, well, I'll do it then. What do I have to do? 5 o'clock. So, yeah, then descending into Los Angeles, carrying on with the story of my life, I turned my phone back on because I had it off and go to put it on airplane mode. And before I did, a bunch of messages appeared. And to make a long story short, it was about my mother, who lives on the Big Island, or did, and was in the hospital. So before I could get back to haiku, I'm pretty much given the news that she's in ICU terminal. And, yeah, I got back to Maui late because, as you said, I had a short connection in Honolulu.
Yeah.
And the airline, the carrier aircraft sat on the tarmac for 45 minutes. And so I missed my flight to Maui and got home, and my mom passed away that night.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's been one heck of a year. I think I need another trip.
I think you do. We have about 10 minutes before I have someone else calling in. Surviving all this in between on that trip to Tuscany in Spain, were you able to get away from all of your emotional upheaval and throw yourself into your art and your people and your work and feel like you were in another world and able to get away for a while doing that with other people?
I think so. I think, you know how it is. You come in and, half the time you probably don't feel like really doing a radio show or whatever, but you come in and you click in the gear, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you just do who you are, right? And also the folks, the students that I had were wonderful. We met in Florence first, and I rented a flat. I found that you can do that in Florence, probably anywhere, through like a VRBO, vacation rentals by owner, or B&B, Airbnb or whatever. And so I rented an apartment and was...
Is it very expensive? Because Florence is very expensive.
It
now.
is very expensive. The flat was like $108 a night.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
I know, with a kitchen, elevator, the whole thing, right next or close, within walking distance to Santa Maria Novella.
Unbelievable. That's
Right?
a great deal.
I know,
Yeah.
and it had a balcony, like a patio, a lanai. It was
Wow.
on the top floor with a view of Florence.
I want that contact.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And it was such a deal. It was kind of old, but not funky.
Yeah.
It was clean.
Yeah.
Pristine, clean, had a kitchen, refrigerator,
Wow.
stove, the whole bit, AC.
Good.
And
'cause
an
it's hot.
elevator.
It's hot in Europe
It
now.
can be very warm. It was very warm, very warm. And so I was there for 4 or 5 nights. And then the company that I contracted with is called Il Chiostro, and they put on fabulous workshops. And I had been to one before where I was brought some students over to study with another instructor. And so I already knew the quality of their programs. And so when they asked me to teach for them, I jumped on it, basically. First class all the way. We went, they come and pick you up in Florence, next to Santa Maria Novella. And then we rode in a bus to Chianti and stayed in a super beautifully, exquisitely renovated monastery from
Really?
the pre-Renaissance
How
that
fabulous.
a couple totally brought back to life and
Wow.
back to its original condition. The classroom was was once the sanctuary. Great big giant space with lots of natural light. Top-notch 4 5-course meals every night. Gourmet.
Wow.
Breakfast buffet every morning, and the lady...
But this is only for the artists registered in this workshop.
Right. And there was another teacher there with she had 3 or 4 students concurrent with mine. And they only allow workshops like yoga or retreats and
Really?
workshops. They
Wow.
don't rent like just to the general,
But
one
you can
person
do
one night.
retreats there. That's great. to
They've
know.
done weddings, but they said the lady, her name is Renata, said that they prefer not to do that. That their original idea was to provide a space where artists and other retreats can come and fully immerse
fabulous.
themselves.
How
Beautiful
great.
pool, swimming pool,
Ah.
exquisite
stayed
grounds.
there?
We did
Wow.
stayed there for 7 nights.
What an experience.
Yes, it's wonderful. The food was great, and then the way I orchestrated and planned the workshop was I wanted a full cultural history art experience. So we painted a step by step. I taught the painting class, and then we went to the various hill towns. They would take us in vans, air conditioned vans to I think we went to 4 various hill towns, including Siena. And then I scheduled a Tuscan cooking class with a world-class chef, a fellow named Andrea. And Andrea has even a book out called A Man from Chianti. And so we did, we thought it was only going to be a couple hours, but it ended up we got there at like 11 a.m. And I don't think we finished until after 3, and we made like a 4-course lunch. Oh, God. As we sipped white wine.
How fabulous. Wow.
Yeah.
So you were able to experience a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and your fabulous, wonderful people who went on this trip have a memory of a lifetime.
I hope so. And then,
what was the art like that you created there?
What we did was, I thought, when in Rome or Florence, right? Yeah. So we went to the Uffizi, and I had planned in advance that we would do a master copy in watercolor of a Titian oil.
Wow.
And so we actually saw the piece that we were going to paint at the Uffizi Gallery, and then we went, when we got to Chianti, we did a step-by-step. I had sent them the image in advance so they could draw their contour drawing onto their watercolor paper, and then we did a step-by-step portrait of Flora by Titian.
Now, typically, what medium do you work with?
I work with both watercolor and oil. Well, I say I work in one and play in the other, and it depends on the day you ask me.
You do such great work, and you've got many awards, you've done in many shows, and you have a wonderful clientele of people.
Thank you.
I love your work. And I mean, it kind of started with these interesting mannequins you did, and I remember seeing them at the airport. I remember when you did those, and they were so brilliant. And then it just kind of evolved into this other life. And I have to ask you, we only have like 4 minutes left, but all of this heartache and unbelievably difficult, challenging situations you've gone through, can you channel some of that into your artwork?
Well, I think B.B. King said you gotta live the blues before you can play them, right?
Yeah.
So I think you're an artist. You know that the as it is our mistakes that we learn the most from. I think we garner the most inspiration from times we are the most introspective, and I think these challenging events that we face inspire that introspection, and in so doing, get us in touch with our feeling. And I think as artists, that is what we strive for, is to elicit an emotional response in our viewer, listener,
I know you were doing this amazing piece in memory of your son. And it's hard because when you want something in memory of someone, you want it to be so good. I mean, I'm just finishing a CD. It's just on CDB, but I got to finish it all up this afternoon. But, I was dedicating it to a loss of a loved one. And when you're doing that, in a way, you want it to be even more, it's more important to make it right. And when you're honoring someone's memory, you really do wish to make something special. And not only that, I really believe, of course I have the spiritual background, but I believe the people speak through you as well. I believe there is this spiritual connection, and I believe that they know what you're doing, and it's not just, you're not just doing it for yourself. True. Their expression's coming through you and is able to speak to you when you ask for that, when there's that opening.
Yes, and I think we are most open when we're focusing on something creative. I think we may not know that, but we are, most of the time, especially in art that we do, writing or painting or, writing music or practicing music, we're solo. And so that soloness, if there's such a word, creates that opening. Channel. There you go.
It's almost like I picture it almost like a chalice, but it's this energy that comes through. Oh, and I got my next person calling in.
Answer.
Aloha. Is this Deborah?
No, it isn't.
Oh, okay. Thank you for calling. I'm waiting for a call from Deborah.
Okay, well, I was calling to tell Carmen she knows I followed her whole trip on Facebook, but I'll just go.
Oh, well,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Okay. All right, I have someone calling in a minute. So let me just wrap up here. I guess I should have given you the whole hour to talk. There's so much more we could talk about. People can follow you on Facebook.
Yes, yes. And thank you, whoever called. Thank you.
And we all wish you our heartfelt. I mean, our hearts have all been going out to you. And you are such an amazing woman and such an amazing part of our community.
Oh, well, that's so sweet of you. Thank you, Cindy. And it's my pleasure.
And aloha, is this Deborah?
Hi, yes, it is. Is this Cindy?
Yes, it is. I'm just finishing up an interview, so thank you, Carmen.
Oh,
for
it's
coming
my
in.
pleasure. Thank you,
It's
Cindy.
wonderful seeing you.